The 9 o'clock news here on BBC One with Michael Buerk.
King Hussein of Jordan is losing his battle against cancer. His American doctors can do no more. He's flying home tonight to die. Big fall in interest rates. Mortgages are cheaper than they've been since the 60s. And changes at the top of BMW may put Rover's future in doubt. Good evening. King Hussein is on his way home to Jordan tonight, critically ill and evidently with little longer to live. Doctors who've been treating him for cancer in the United States say his internal organs have failed. It's clear they see no point in further treatment. The king has ruled Jordan since the early 50s. He's played a pivotal role in efforts to bring peace to the Middle East, and his country's stability is seen as crucial to that of the whole region.
The ambulance carrying the king left the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, where he was undergoing his third course of cancer treatment. Officials said the king was conscious and had personally taken the decision to return home when his treatment failed. He was last seen in public 10 days ago, leaving Jordan for the United States. He'd been home but a few days before he'd had to return to hospital. The man who'd survived civil war and repeated assassination attempts was clearly weakened. At the White House today, President Clinton asked for prayers for King Hussein. It was a prayer breakfast, and among those present were the PLO leader Yasser Arafat and Leah Rabin, the widow of Israel's assassinated Prime Minister.
I ask you to pray for our King Hussein, a wonderful human being, a champion of peace who, I promise you today, is fighting for his life mostly, so he can continue to fight for peace.
In Jordan, news of the king's sudden return was announced on television. In Amman tonight, the public mood is subdued. After 47 years, few Jordanians have known any other ruler, and their country, caught between Israel and its Arab enemies, may not have survived without him. I ask for his recovery, he says, and that he comes back safe and secure. During his recent return to Jordan, the king changed the succession. His brother Hassan, who greeted him, had been crown prince for 32 years. But the king replaced him with his eldest son, Abdullah, and Jordanians are still uncertain of the man who's been regent for less than a fortnight.
I'm almost certain he is a chip of the old block. He's similar to his father in mannerism, in his modesty, in mixing with the people, but obviously he's an unknown quantity politically. He hasn't had the experience yet. Having said that, he seems to have got on well with other military people in the Arab world.
The king's last major task came last October, when President Clinton asked him to help persuade Israel to negotiate a new agreement with the PLO. Now Jordan has its own peace treaty with Israel. Jordan's future is more stable. But that it is largely a tribute to the political skills of the dying king. Brian Hanrahan, BBC News.
Well, our correspondent Richard Downs is in Amman. Richard, are the people of Jordan reconciled to the idea of losing their king?
I think they are. Jordanian TV this evening didn't say that the king had lost the battle. What they said was he was coming home and that he was going to go to hospital. But people are reading between the lines. They realise that the king has very little time to live.
How smooth is the succession likely to be?
I think it will be smooth. The king's son, Abdullah, people here say that he is a chip off the old block, that he's very much like his father, and they like his personality. He's also extremely popular with the army. He is, after all, a major general in the Jordanian army. He's popular in the region, and he's particularly popular among the Palestinians, who are the majority of Jordanians, because he has a Palestinian wife. So the omens are quite good for Crown Prince Abdullah.
To what extent, though, will the new king be able to play the role that his father filled, that of the voice of Arab moderation?
It's a very difficult role to play. King Hussein was unique. He ruled for over 40 years, and he was, of course, an extraordinary man in many respects. Anybody trying to follow him has a huge task on hand. And people are saying that that shouldn't really be put on the shoulders of the young Prince Abdullah. He's only 37 years of age and he's very young. People say he's a political novice. They hope he'll be as successful as his father, but they don't really know.
Richard Downs in Oman, thanks very much. Here, interest rates have fallen for the 5th time in as many months, taking some mortgages to their lowest level for 30 years. The cut in the base rate by 0.5% to 5.5% was bigger than the city expected.
Millions of homeowners will soon be enjoying the lowest mortgage rates for a generation. The mortgage rate cuts already announced by the biggest lenders, which are likely to be followed by all the other lenders over the next few days, bring the standard variable mortgage rate down to a level not seen since the 1960s. With new fixed-rate mortgages also down to historically low levels, anyone who fixed their rate a year or two ago might find it worth their while to move their mortgage.
There's plenty of people who've got, say, 8% fixed rates. They should be reviewing their circumstances, because even with redemption penalties attached, it may be worth reconsidering whether they've got the right deal or not.
But for savers like Wendella Clark, the succession of cuts in interest rates has meant some unpleasant calculations. She's a former head teacher who lives mainly on the income from her savings. And 5 rate cuts in as many months have meant that her income has fallen sharply.
The situation is by no means rosy. I can see interest rates going down and down to match the European rates. I can see myself getting older and older so that one can't work so hard, and it's very difficult to know what to do.
With £10,000 in a high-interest account, last summer you might have expected £750 interest in a year. Today you'll be making just £580 a year. And it seems very likely that when savings rates are cut again, that interest will fall to just £530 a year. But ICI today provided a reminder of why the Bank of England has felt the need to cut interest rates so quickly. It warned of continuing uncertainty and slower economic growth around the world. It's already cut 500 jobs this year. Businesses had been calling on the Bank of England to help out and were happy that their pleas had been heard.
We think this will help to get consumer confidence back, get people spending a bit more money, avoid any risk of the economy moving either into a recession or into a very long period of slow growth with a lot of job losses. This is good news all round.
Weak demand on the high street is the biggest problem businesses now face, and the large fall in rates we've seen will boost consumer confidence. The problem is, no one can be quite sure how much difference it'll make. The bank's quick and decisive action in cutting interest rates has certainly made the threat of a recession less likely. The bank may now feel that it's done enough. But unless these new record low mortgage rates get people into the shops and spending money pretty quickly, then the pressure will be on again for rates to go even lower. Ed Crooks, BBC News.
The government's ordered an increase in security in Britain as a precaution against possible attacks by Irish Republican dissident groups. It stems from the IRA's admission that some of its weapons were stolen a year ago by former members opposed to the Good Friday peace agreement.
This is at least a surprising statement by the IRA, an admission in Sinn Féin's newspaper that some of its weaponry had been stolen by ex-members now associated with the group which carried out last year's Omagh bombing. Some, but not all of the weapons have been recovered, say the IRA, and it called on the other group to disband. It's understood that the government is tightening security in Britain as a precaution against attacks by Republican dissidents, including the faction accused of stealing the weapons.
We're entering a very difficult period, and the story about IRA arms confirms that. It also, I think, confirms the need for decommissioning of all weapons, and there's no doubt that we need to make political progress now.
Unionists believe the timing of the IRA's statement is highly significant.